We're diving into web accessibility. It shouldn't be a buzzword that comes and goes and we sometimes think about it. A lot of us are ignorant or a little bit guilty of failing to understand and appreciate the differences out there in the world. It should be a crucial part of web design. I'm not going to cover the legalities of failing to comply, but I want to dive into how can you make your elemental websites much more accessible. At the end of the day, web accessibility is going to ensure that your websites can be used by anyone. I'm talking about visual, motor, auditory, or cognitive impairments. In terms of websites where we're presenting or selling information or products or leads, do we really want to undercut or leave out a chunk of the potential market? So let's break down how we can achieve this in Elemental. First off, you got to make sure your website is visible and readable. I'm talking about the colors and the fonts and ensuring that the contrast or the ranges you use or your palette is clear to see and understand. Just because your client has got their heart set on a yellow background and white text, you're going to have to educate them and say, yeah, we can use that kind of color in places or maybe with your images, but when it comes to the wording and the background, we're gonna have to disappoint you a little bit to ensure that we adhere to web accessibility compliance. There's a link in the video description where you can add in a code snippet, so you can add a color contrast tool to your WordPress dashboard. Go to settings and contrast checker. Once you got that code snippet, go and use the code snippets plugin, activate it, and it will now give you this. So if you've got this as your background color, and this is, say, your font color, and you go and hit Save Colors, it's going to tell you if it's compliant to AA and AAA standards. And if it isn't, it will then tell you the nearest color that you need to use if you want to become compliant. And if I was to go and hit black, you will now see we completely pass. But the danger here is, what if you wanted to use white and yellow? You can clearly see you are not compliant. So you got no excuses to say you didn't know. And it then allows you or your client to make a decision over what colors we want to go for. Sometimes we may not be fully compliant to AAA, and we might only be compliant to AA. What you then have to consider is the size of your font. So if your font is quite big, so say 2 rem or 20 pixel, you can probably get away with it. But if your font is 15 or 14 pixels, so now we are going small, and you are not compliant to AA, you're going to fail web accessibility. And when it comes to font sizes, you can help yourself out even more there. Again, we got a code snippet, link in the video description, and that is going to give you the clamp calculator. What you really want to be doing is making your fonts use rem. Don't just rely on pixels. And you want to make them responsive between different screen sizes. So when you shrink your screen down, you want your font to shrink as well, but you want it to get to a point where it doesn't shrink any further. And in terms of making your website quite sensible to look at, as you grow the screen, you may want it to grow, but again, it gets to a point where it won't grow any further. The clamp calculator is going to massively help you out. We're going to use REM. Let's say our threshold is 380 to 1200 in terms of the size of the screen. So if your screen size was 5,000 pixels wide because you're viewing it on a cinema, it don't matter. It stops at 1,200 in terms of how big it grows. And I'm going to say I want my font to go from 1 rem to 4 rem, or maybe the other way around. Start with the desktop. Biggest size is 4 rem, and as you shrink down, it will not go smaller than 1 rem. These are two little tools that can massively help you out with making your fonts responsive and your color contrast as close as possible to meeting web accessibility. And if you're a bit unfamiliar with using font clamps, go and click the link in the video that I've got that explains this a bit more, but you would go over to your heading, your text, your buttons, you'd go to your style tab, go to your typography, and you're not going to enter in a pixel or an REM value. What you're going to do is click the pencil and paste your value in there. But of course, you could be a little bit more crafty as well. So rather than adding in your values here, if you wanted to, you could create a CSS framework. I've got videos on that as well. So what you would do is click your site settings, go to custom CSS, and you could add a whole load of this in as well. And it might look complicated, but it makes the process of building a website 20 times more efficient.
I haven't scientifically worked out the 20% more efficient bit, so don't quote me on that, even though I've gone and said it. So now you got a sound bite, so you could quote me on that. Just don't quote me on it.
A major thing that is overlooked is function functional UI and keyboard navigation. There will be users that actually rely on the keyboard to navigate and move around the website. Now with Elemental, they have improved this over time. So if I start to hit tab, I get a button in my top that says skip to content. This is something that's quite new. So if I go and click that, it will actually show the content. What that does is skip the header and the navigation menu. That's already built into Elemental. So if your header was really big, or you had loads of items like a mega menu, loads of buttons, loads of social links, lots of other stuff, it would then skip that and go down to the next content. If I don't click it or hit return and I tab again, it takes me to the first item in my navigation menu, takes me to the button over there, takes me down to the next button. Can you see the black outline there? I hit tab again, I go to the next button. I hit tab again, and I now go to my form. And as I tab, it's going to move down the fields until we get to the send your message button. I hit tab again, and I'm now at the social icons, and now I'm going down my icon list with the phone number and the email address. And then eventually, as I tab more, I will then hit the other links as well. That was a major improvement for Elemental when they went and introduced it, and I'm so glad they did. Alt image descriptions. Now you can do this right at the end after you've built the website, because you may suddenly decide you're not going to use some images. But what you want to do for every image, even the logos, you can even do it for your SVG icons as well, because maybe your logo is an icon. You want to go into all of your images and you want to give them an alt image description. Try to keep it under 80 characters. Make it descriptive. Don't just say image. Kind of explain what it is. So if someone's got a visual impairment and they're going through like a screen reader, they're going to get an explanation of what it is. This is super, super important. Okay, so many websites, they just drop images in, and sometimes all it has is like a copy of the title. Website 08, what does that even mean? So if you want to add a bit of clarity onto what the website is about or what the images are, for instance, over here, Mel and Hank sat at their table. Give some form and explanation. You don't have to explain all the colors or if it's a sunny day, unless the setting is relevant to the image for why it's being shown on the website in the first place. As far as tips go, that is a really simple, easy one. Semantic HTML and hierarchies of tags can feel a little bit complicated, but what you want to think about is the order of what is presented on your page. Big tip, every page should not have more than one H1 HTML tag. After that, you can have several H2s, but then you need to think about the order. So each H2 must be like a level on the page. And then underneath that, you might have H3, H4, H5, H6. But what you got to think about is if you suddenly go from one level to another, so let's say one level is what do we offer? And then you break down the services. What we offer is H2. And then the services might be H3. Then you might have another section which is like what kind of projects have we worked on? That might be another H2. And then you might list down the individual projects. And if you're using headings, that might be another H3. Maybe underneath that, you're going to mention company names. That might be a H4. Maybe you might mention the name of someone from that company. That might be a H5. Then you may move on to another section. And this might be about testimonials. That could be a H2 because it's like a different level. It's a new entity on the page. So to maintain some order, that is my H1, that is a H2, and that is also a H2 heading because I wanted to smuggle in my keywords. You can have more than one H2. This is a H2 because it's a new section. And then the headings within here, the child containers within this section or container, they are all H3s. Now, even though this is a new container, it kind of follows on from what we had above, so I've left that as a H3 as well. It's very important that you don't go H2, H5, H3. Be very careful about the hierarchy. How can we help is a H2, and then my services inside, these are all H3s in terms of the titles. About Pixel Docs, which is the name of this dummy website, I've made a H2. And Get in Touch, I've made a H2 as well, because they are different levels. This Get in Touch is not the same as About, so I wouldn't go like H2 and then H3. It's a completely different section. And what do people say, like a testimonial section? The title for this section container is a H2. The title of the individual testimonial is a H3, because it sits within there, and we've already got a H2. Then we got text. Then when I get onto the name of the person, that is a H4. The company or where they work or their actual job title, that is a H5. So 2, 3, 4, 5. The other important thing you got to think about is making sure you've assigned the header and the footer tag as well. So if we go up to the header and we go into it, and you could do this in the header template or on the page, Make sure you've clicked on the container, go to the additional options tab and ensure the HTML tag is set to be a header. And what you want to do is when you go to the footer, click on the parent container, go over to additional options, and normally it's always going to say default. You want to make sure you clicked footer. The reason why these are important is because without doing this, it makes it very difficult for screen readers to relay the information back to the user about where they are on the page, especially when they are tabbing. There's no easy way to explain Aria labels other than that they are very useful for buttons because they allow us to have a bit more detail. So if someone is using a screen reader and they tab to a button, some further information will be revealed. Don't forget, if you've got a visual impairment, they may not understand what they have actually tabbed to. So let's go to this button on our page, and it currently goes to a services page. Now you might think, well, that's good enough, right? Actually, you have to do a little bit more. You need to go to the Advanced tab and scroll down to Attributes. And this is an area a lot of us don't show in tutorials, and that's bad of us, and I'm going to make sure you see it now. What you need to do is add a key, a pipe, and a value. The key is Aria-Label with a pipe. And then my value is find out more about our services. You could even put click here to go and see our services, read more about our services. If that particular button was going to take them to a contact form, you would say, click this to go to the contact form, click this to contact us to find out more, to get a quote. By doing that, you make it easier to understand for someone that's relying on a screen reader. Do I really have to explain the importance of going through the responsive breakpoints? And you should definitely consider the tablet, even though a lot of people don't always use tablets for websites now. But definitely make sure you do it on the mobile. And if you're very careful with how you build and you use maybe a bit of a CSS framework, or responsive fonts, you make sure that on your desktop you go and put in, say, 20 pixel padding on the left and right. It will follow through. If you're very careful and methodical and maybe duplicate sections or widgets when you've got it to look right on the different devices, getting your websites to look good on different breakpoints is actually quite simple. And I don't have to add in loads of breakpoints like mobile landscape and tablet landscape because devices are changing all the time. You don't have to worry about every device under the sun, but that doesn't mean you still overlook it. So if you want to build mobile first and then work your way up, do it. If you want to start on the desktop and then work your way down to checking out what the mobile or the tablet looks like, again, do what you need to do, but make sure you don't overlook it. By following these simple steps, you can make your Elementor website so much more accessible. And if you're not using Elementor, a lot of what I've said here, you can put into practice with other page builders or any other website tool as well. Accessibility isn't just about compliance. It's about making the web better for everyone. Check out the links that I've popped in the video description. Pop in the comments if I've missed anything or overlooked or you feel like it needs to be better explained. Hey, I'm Imran from Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow. I'll see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way.